attic. It was never allowed in contained my mom's secret life. And it found out because a storm ripped part of our roof apart when I was 27 years old. Growing up, there was one rule in our house that never changed: stay out of the attic. My parents never explained why. They just said it was unsafe and locked the pull-down ladder with a metal latch. My sister and I joked that there were dead bodies up there because nobody was ever allowed inside. Not even during Christmas when decorations were stored there. Then one night a massive storm hit our town in Pennsylvania and part of the roof collapsed above the attic. My dad was out of state for work, so my mum asked Meta help move damaged boxes before more rain came. In the moment she handed me the attic key, I noticed her hands were shaking. I climbed up expecting old furniture and dusty boxes. Instead, I stepped into what looked like a completely different life. The attic was filled with photographs, paintings, letters, and dozens of framed newspaper articles covering one entire wall. My stomach dropped because every single article featured my mother, but not the woman I knew. The articles described her as a rising country music singer from Nashville. There were photographs of her performing on stage in front of huge crowds, magazine interviews, concert posters, even a gold record hanging on the wall. It stood there frozen because my mother was a middle school librarian who barely sang in public. I had never heard anyone mention a music career. Then I found a large framed photograph of her standing beside a man I did not recognize. They were hugging and smiling, and on her left hand was an engagement ring. My heart started racing because that man was definitely not my father. I heard footsteps behind me and turned around. My mom was standing at the top of the ladder staring at the photograph. She looked devastated. I asked dumb question: who is she? She sat down on an old chair and started crying. Apparently, before she met my father, she had a completely different life. At 22, she moved to Nashville, chasing a music career. She spent years performing in bars and eventually signed a small record deal. That was when she met a songwriter named Jason. They fell deeply in love, got engaged and planned to get married. I could barely believe. I was cheering because it sounded like a movie, not my mom's life. Then she told me why the attic was locked. Jason died in a car accident 6 weeks before their wedding. My mother was in the passenger seat. She survived, but suffered severe injuries and months of rehabilitation. The accident destroyed her emotionally. She quit music, abandoned her contract, and moved back to Pennsylvania to start over. A few years later, she met my father and built a new life. I thought it was the whole story. Then I noticed a small wooden box hidden beneath a stack of records. Inside were hundreds of letters. My hand started shaking when I realised they were all addressed to my mom after the accident. Some were from record labels, others were from fans, but a name appeared over and over: Jason's parents. I opened one letter and nearly stopped breathing. It said, "We know the accident was not your fault, and we forgive you." I looked at my mother in confusion. Then she admitted the truth. The night Jason died, she was driving nothing. She lost control during heavy rain and the car crashed. She was never charged because investigators ruled it an accident, but she blamed herself every single day for more than 30 years. That was why she hid everything: the music, the photographs, the awards, the memories. She could not look at that part of her life without reliving the worst moment of it. Then I found one final envelope marked "Open if you ever forgive yourself." It was written by Jason before he died. It was a letter he planned to give her on their wedding day. In it, they talked about their future, their dreams, and how she made every day of his life better. The last line said, "If anything ever happens to him, promise me you will keep singing." My mother cried harder than I had ever seen. A month later, she finally took the photographs out of the attic and placed them around the house. She even played one of her old songs for our family for the first time. My dad sat beside her holding her hand the entire time. And as I listened to her sing, I realised the attic was never hiding a scandal or a crime. It was hiding the version of my mother that heartbreak convinced her she had to bury forever, until the truth finally found its way back into the light. Would you keep digging for the truth if your family begged you to leave the past buried?